to seek first the
kingdom of God and believe what you say.
So all I need,
All that I need is your kingdom.
all I need is mine.
All that I need
You
is
are
my king.
all I need.
All that I need is your righteousness.
And I'll have everything.
all that I need is your kingdom. All that I need is my king. All that I need is your righteousness. Then I'd have everything.
You said that
Yes, hello, good evening everyone. Good evening world.
Good evening Tacloban, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Isang mapagpalang gabi sa ating lahat. And of course, we just want to say good morning and good afternoon to all our brothers and sisters around the world. So once again, we welcome you in this program, Kingdom Talk. And this is your coach, Pressy.
And Coach Ariel.
And welcome to the program. And may God continue to speak to us this night. And I pray that the message will sink into our hearts.
Yes, today, Coach Pressy, before we continue in this program, let's pray first. Father, thank you for your goodness. Thank you for everything, for the
Yes.
strength. Thank you for your favor. Thank you for your mercy, oh Lord God. We continue to invite you in our lives to continually reign as Lord and Kings, as Lord and King in our lives, oh God. And we allow your will to be done in us as it is in heaven, oh God. Father, let the governor of the kingdom of God speak to us with wisdom and understanding so that we can comprehend the message that we are going to hear in this program, Kingdom Talk. Thank you. We honor you continually in Jesus' name. Amen
Amen.
and amen.
So again, welcome everyone, and it is a Wednesday night here in the Philippines, and it is the 26th day of April.
Yes, Coach Pressy. And today, Coach, we invite everyone to like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Kingdom Talk Philippines.
And also to like and invite your friends to like our Facebook page, Kingdom Talk Philippines.
Yes, Coach Pressy.
And of course, before we proceed, we just want to acknowledge and thank Sister Ami Jimenez Headscos as our program partner, and also to Sir Patrick Headscos for
The
partnering
husband
with
of
us.
Sister
Yes,
Ami, Coach
thank you for this couple, and may God continue to bless all the labor of their hands and make it productive, and lahat ng gagawin nila ay mag-flourish in the name of Jesus.
Coach Pressy, we acknowledge also the life of Sir Pastor Shamron Munro for
Yes.
planting seed in this program, Kingdom Talk.
That's
Thank you, sir,
right.
and more kingdom favor to you.
Yes, as you can see, we are late in 30 minutes because
I was in a feeding
feeding
program,
program.
Coach Pressy, and we also have a film showing, so hope you understand why we are late today, Coach
that's
Pressy.
right. Amen.
So tonight, Coach Pressy, I'm so excited to put on our guest, but before that,
Let's put on Sister Ami Jimenez Headscos for the introduction.
Praise the Lord for this very moment, and I am here to introduce our guest speaker at this time here in Kingdom Talk, Philippines. He was born in unfavorable conditions, being rejected and given harsh punishment by his father, which influenced his mother to deal with lots of pain and a marriage while trying to be a wife and a mother, whom she raised to speak well and assured that he would be a good man, husband, and father to change the course of his life with God's help. He then had to figure out how to make ends meet as a teenager while having a vision in his bedroom to own land one day. He saw himself running over his own dirt at the age of 19. He first had to go through the process before these things actually happened in his life. He has been working since he was 16 years old by his mother's approval as long as he maintained good grades in school. After grade school and some college years, he stumbled into the transportation industry through his mother-in-law and has utilized his 15 years of experience in the transportation industry, serving the needs of people. He was invited to sit down with the president and vice president of the very first company he worked for. The president and vice president shared with him on how to start at the ground level before walking into buying trucks, and this is how he launched his own transportation company in July 2008, right in the middle of an economic recession, and was thriving because he was serving people. He always said this was the groundbreaking experience to learn how to deal with himself and have a love for people without being taken advantage of. Furthermore, due to his being such a great punctual on-time person who kept his service so high, the president of the company gave him $10,000 with no string attached to purchase his second truck, giving him a chance to build his own portfolio because he was such a great asset to the company. As a perpetual and dedicated student under the tutelage of Trista Sue Craig, the Kingdom community of Naples for 9 years, and listening to Dr. Miles Monroe teachings repetitiously on Kingdom principles has allowed him to accelerate even more by doing the work and being properly aligned. He's married to his wonderful wife, Mareisha Roddy, for 15 years and counting, who helps in his vision. She is the perfect fit. They both own a thriving transportation company. They bought their first property together in 2020, over 40 plus acres, where they are currently building on. Both are smart investors, and they split their residences between Dallas, known as the Big D, and the beautiful landscape and scenery of Wyoming. The next phase in his life is to empower the next generation to become visionaries through his personal leadership gift and bring his gift to the community if needed. Hallelujah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this powerful man of God, DylanJarre Roddy. Blessings.
Thank you very much, Ate Ami, for that wonderful introduction to our guest in this program, Kingdom Talk.
Yes, thank you. And we continually to speak life and blessing to you, Sister Ami and to Sir Patrick. Okay, so tonight, get ready with your pens and pad because we will be learning about foundational principles for male and female. So let us all welcome DylanJarre Roddy.
We all are born in families. All we know is the microcosm, the small part that we play in the world. We're born in a family, a man and a woman that came together, and you're born from the marriage or the relationship that your parents, brought about. You came from that dynamic. That's all you know. So speaking from personal experience, all I knew was my mother and my father. All I knew was the dynamic and the culture that they built around me when I was coming up. That is all I knew. So any ideas, concepts, or the way life's supposed to work came out of that. So we all come empty until we are filled with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. DylanJarre here, and I want to thank you guys for coming and join me at this topic. And I want to, before I go into it, I want to actually thank Coach Ariel and Percy for the opportunity to speak on this and engage with their audience on this particular topic. Before I get into it, I want to make sure that I say my wife is right here with me. She is actually giving my time. So we always do everything together. So there's not a time when you see her, you see me. When you see me, you see her. It's usually like that. Most times when people don't see us, they're asking, "Where's your other half?" But anyways, I want to again thank for the opportunity, and I want to say that if you want to, Marsha, you can go ahead and say your hello.
Hello, guys.
There she is. That's a beautiful wife. We have been married for 15 years and counting. We've been successfully married for 15 years. Of course, there's a process to every relationship and every marriage. So I think this topic is very unique, and we have the ability to be able to speak on it, not just because it's in theory, we actually practice it. This is something we live according to, and we continue to go through the process each and every day. And again, I want to do that. But before I get into this, I want to really talk about something that is very important to me because I was talking to my wife the other day, and I thought it was quite interesting, the dynamics that I'm seeing in the world today. We're in a unique space. We're in a unique environment. It's not that it's new. It's not that it hasn't happened before. It's just that it's a generation that doesn't understand how to solve the problem. So I think the unique dynamic is that we don't really truly understand the function and the principle of the male and the female. Now, before I jump into that topic, I want to go into something that I think that I need to make sure we can digest this on a slow pace, and then maybe down the line we'll start to get a greater understanding of what it means to be successful in a relationship between and the dynamics between a male and a female, and then bridge the gap of how marriage is the master component to it. But before I get into it, I just want to say our world today, there's a lot of divorces happening today. A lot of divorces that are going on because I think in due in part because of this dynamic, this power struggle between a man and a woman. And I want to give a quote on something that I think is quite unique here that gives a little bit more perspective to what's happening, not just in America, but is happening all around the world. The most important institution in society is the family. If the family breaks down, society breaks down. I think that is so important because Marco Rubio said that from a political perspective, because I wanted to engage this with a political perspective because that is the arena, or I should say the institution that is causing us to start to question things. And I got something unique I want to say about the unique concept on the question, but it is a question nonetheless that has been asked from the political sphere. And I think it's very important that we understand that the political sphere is not supposed to ask the question. There's a different unit, there's a different part of society that's supposed to question and answer that statement. But before I get into that, I want to make something else very clear. Everything I do is about vision. Everything I live is what I saw. I'm literally living and speaking what I saw today. So this is a personal quote. So if you tweet it, I would love, thank you for giving me the credit for it. But vision is the master key to one's life. Without vision, you're malfunctioning. It is very clear and simple. It's what you cannot see, you cannot become. If you cannot see where you're going, then you cannot predict where you are heading. It is so important. So before I jump into any of that, going into that topic on vision, because there's a correlation between the dynamics of the male and female, because everything in life is about a vision. There's a vision to everything. There's a vision for the man. There's a vision of a woman. There's a vision to how society is supposed to operate. There's a vision to every part of life. We have to see the dynamics and how it works in unison together to synchronize us, that makes us one with each other. But here's my last point I want to make, that if you tear down a strong marriage, you tear down the tenets of a nation. I want to make it very clear that every nation, and I talked to my wife about this, I think it's very important. Every nation stands on the back in the strength of a strong marriage. It stands on the back in the strength of a strong woman and a strong man. It really is actually flipped, a strong man and then a strong woman. The reason why that is very important is because without the identity of the man, then there cannot be an identity of the woman. And without the help of a woman, there cannot be the future of the man's vision. So we're going to break this thing down. But before I get into that, I have to talk about something that I think it was different for me, actually. About 2 days ago, I got sick. I rarely get sick. If you talk to my wife, she'll tell you that sickness is not something I deal with, especially since we've been eating organic. We eat more healthier foods. We go through the process. We do the normal things that we do to make sure we keep ourselves healthy. A little side note here. I went from 295 and I'm down into the 230. So I like to thank you, man. Look at that. But anyway, back to the point. What I'm saying is that because we do what's right for our physical health, I rarely get sick. And so when I got sick, it was very unusual for me. But in that moment, the Creator God spoke to me. It wasn't a loud voice or a big thunder. It was just silent because I was regurgitating, I was gagging, I was throwing up basically 2 nights in a row. That has never happened to me before, back to back. I felt nothing. I wasn't ill. I just couldn't hold my food down. It was unusual. And God spoke to me and said, the nation is sick, just like you're sick. You don't feel it, but it is present. So, where am I going? The nation doesn't understand that the sickness is our ignorance on the dynamics and the power of our ability to work one in unison with each other. So we're going to jump into this topic about the order of vision. The order of vision. And I want to make sure that when we get into this, I want to make it very clear. I want to pull this point out because I want to make sure I get my points across and then kind of dive into some of the ability, because over the course of time, we've lost that. There'll be some historical context. Before I actually go into that, the order of vision, we all are born in families. All we know is the microcosm, the small part that we play in the world. We're born in a family, a man and a woman that came together, and you're born from the marriage or the relationship that your parents, brought about. You came from that dynamic. That's all you know. So speaking from personal experience, all I knew was my mother and my father. All I knew was the dynamic and the culture that they built around me when I was coming up. That is all I knew. So any ideas or concepts or the way life's supposed to work came out of that. So we all come empty until we are filled with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That is where sometimes the problem arrives. It's because we don't understand the order of vision and how we're supposed to live. So that gets me to my point. The most powerful and effective unity in the world is the marriage relationship between the man and the woman. Again, I'm going to say it for those of you in the back. The most powerful and effective unity in the world is the marriage relationship between the man and the woman. Why is that? It is the beginning of establishing and building a successful partnership that creates an environment to connect for the building of a future community of people. In other words, the man and the woman is the beginning of social structure. It is the beginning of life as we know it. There is no political, there is no social, there is no business, there is no other dynamic that is stronger than the man and the woman coming as one. It is the most powerful and effective unit because out of that unit comes the life that we know today that we live. So we're born in it. But in order for us to understand it, we have to go back to the beginning. Whether you understand the beginning or not, there is a story, a narrative that gives us a concept of how life started. It started with one man and it started with one woman. And those two created the billions of people today. So society is not a microcosm of what policy is put in place. It is a microcosm of what the man and the woman in their marriage have instituted into the next generation that creates the policy. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. I'm jumping ahead of myself. See, I don't want to get too far ahead. This is a lot of information, but I want to say that because it is important. We put all of our power and all of our unction and all of our ideas and all of our energy into what politics, into what people think, when really it's about how you were built at home. That brings me to my next point. I want to make it very clear about this statement, actually. That a man and a woman are equal by design, but have different distinctive qualities and characteristics that make them function differently. Again, I'm going to say it again. The man and the woman are equal by design. How are we equal by design? Because society right now is telling us that a man and a woman is not different. There's a lot of terms going around. Patriarchy. There's a lot of other terms that are going around. There's even a questioning of the man and the woman as the true essence of the traditional role. But why is that important? To know that a man and a woman is equal. It's equal. That is because in the beginning, there's a specific dynamic that happened. And in that dynamic, we have to break down the reality of what is the true dynamics of a man and a woman and how they function. Now, I want to make it very clear. The Creator God has made us to live and be in dominion. So that means you are a leader. If He's given you the responsibility of dominion, having control over your circumstances, control over everything. Now, I know this dynamic is kind of unusual for some people because you're trying to get dominion right now in your finances. I understand the reality of how that can conflict with your concept. Because there's a lot of areas where you don't have dominion. But I want to make it very clear that the Creator God built you in the beginning to have dominion, to have control. So if He built you to have control, then that means there is a space for you to be able to regain that status, that mentality, and that attitude. So we're going to jump into a couple of roles and a couple of dynamics here between a male and a woman, because I have to take my time. I want to make sure that when I get done, and this may have to be a series, this may have to jump into something that may be 3 or 4 or 5 series set. But I got to get this clear again. So if you're made in dominion, we're going to make that simple. Every man and woman is a leader. You're born a leader. So if you're born a leader, you have the ability to lead in your area of gifting, your space, your impact, your influence. You are built for design and designed for dominion. And it is through your gift. So I want to make that very clear. This is what makes a man and a woman equal in by design. You're both created to be dominion partners. Okay? So before we get into that, we're going to jump into the roles of what it is that a man and a woman is. I'm going to first start with the man because it's very particular that the man has a specific role. He is the head, not because he's the best. He's the head because he's the source. How is he the source? Well, we got to go back to nature. Nature gives the best teacher. Every seed that goes in the ground, every seed that goes into the earth has to go into the ground, right? Okay, and I'm going to correlate it to something that we all understand. Every seed goes into the ground, right? So we'll put the seed as the male and we'll put the ground as the soil, as the woman, all right? So when the seed goes in, where there's no seed, there could be no fruit. There could be no harvest, right? The same way it means with the male and the semen aspect and the anatomy of the body of a male and a female. We're perfectly joined together It is perfect, a perfect fit. The seed of a man actually is supposed to go into the woman, and she incubates that seed. That seed then becomes a baby. Without a man, there's not a possible future. But without a woman, that is not the potential of the future. I'll repeat it again. Without the man, there is not a possibility of the future. But without a woman, there is not the potential of the future. Okay? So we're going to dive in. The man is the responsible head. It doesn't mean he's better. It means he's responsible. The female was sent to help him. Help means to rule alongside him, in partnership with him. In partnership with him. So that means that everything he does, he has a vision, and everything she does, she incubates the vision and she gives it back to him, and they create synergy. That synergy is what make the unit powerful. Okay. Number two, the male is the provider. He is the source, the alpha, the beginning, first, primary, principal. He's the most significant. He's the occurrence, the status of being first. First in the order of importance. Now, when I say the order of importance, please, ladies, don't get mad at me. I'm not saying that you guys are not important, because at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that you're protected. You guys are always first. But in the order of life, everything has a role. Every male, every female has a role. And we're going to get into the law. There's a huge law that we're going to dive into, and it's called the law of gender. And it talks about the dynamics of how we create synergy with that. But I want to say the male in the aspect is first, because again, the male gives the potential of the future. The female gives the potential, the male gives the power of the future. The female realizes the potential of the future. So that's why that dynamic is there. A woman is supposed to be the incubator. I mentioned that, so we'll move in. The male is the cultivator. Now, when we talk about cultivating, we're talking about, let's look at it in the sense of how there's a lot of things going on that I will bring to mention. That there's a lot of men today and a lot of women who are having the back and forth conversation about, what's the job of a male and what's the job of a female, because things have changed so much. Over historical context, it's always been the man that was the breadwinner. He always went and got the bread, he went and got the job, and the woman was a home giver. Well, things have drastically changed. The homemaker is drastically changed. It's drastically changed from that position. There are women who are highly successful, and we are celebrating that. That is the great accomplishment for women. But at the same time, men will always be the ones who are going to be the catalyst for the potential of the future. So what am I saying with that? We still cultivate and we build as a foundation. We are the strength of the nation. Without our strength, there is no future. Without our logical sense, there is no future. Without our ability to articulate and to build on top of what you guys already have and give you the tools, the teachings, the attitude, the character, the strength, because you guys get strength from us when we give it to you. So when we give you something, you guys receive, and I'm going to go into that further. So that's why that dynamic is there. The woman is the producer. The reason why women are so productive today, you can see this everywhere. I'll be honest with you, you guys have so many dynamic things that we don't even have. Men, we need to catch up with that. Women have everything under the sun. I mean, you name it, they got it. I think men are behind in that aspect. I think we do need to add more value to ourselves in that aspect to get more avenues to where we can learn more about ourselves, so we can cultivate more of our own selves, so that before we get married or even thinking about a relationship, I got to pause on this, because if you want to be married or if you even consider being married, you cannot go into a relationship with a woman who's already ready. If you're not ready, please do not come into her space, because you will be more of a headache for her than adding value to what she can give. So I want to make this very clear. Men, You have to discover who you are. Discover your abilities. Discover your vision. I'm a man of vision. When I first talked to my wife, I gave her my vision. Did that mean I knew everything that was going to happen in my life? No, that did not. But as you can see, 15 years in, my wife is still here because she sees the vision and it's actually manifesting in her eyes today. She sees it. It's manifesting. Let me give you a pause. I'll give you an idea of what I mean by that. And I want to make sure, again, I take my time because I don't want to just give you knowledge. I want to give you something that we actually live. So what I want to say is that when I was at the age of 19, I saw myself actually buying land for myself, and I was going to build on that land. When I first met Mareisha, I told her, I said, you know what? We're going to have land, and we're going to buy it. And we're going to buy this land, and we're going to build on our land. And there are other business concepts that I brought to her. The first thing she said, well, if it's something you believe, then I stand with you. She said, I believe with you. I said, cool, let's go. Mind you, I'm 19. Now, in 2020, we bought our first acreage piece of land. And we're building currently on it at this moment. See, vision precedes, will give the woman the future that she's looking for. She'll help you produce that. Now, in the middle of that, there's a lot of information I'm leaving out because that's why I said it's a series and topic, because Mareisha was very intricate in producing some of the things that were in my mind and some of the ideas I was echoing to her. And she was reverberating that back to me to give me production, to keep me moving, to keep me going, to keep that drive, to keep that function. Okay. Now, I want to say, this seems abnormal in our society, but I want to make it clear. The man is the giver. Let's say it one more time. Men, you give. The woman receives. The man is the giver. She is the receiver. The man is the provider. She is the encourager. The man is the protector. She is the encourager. Okay? The man is the developer. That's why I say you have to have the vision. Development means you have the capacity to see the future. And you give it to her, and she'll help you nurture that into a reality. Okay, I'm going to speak to this because there's a couple of things I want to do. The man is the source and the teacher. He's the source and the teacher. She is the resource, the one who gives the commands of what she learned from her husband. If anything else, your wife should be repeating what you're saying wherever she goes. If your presence is not that strong in her life, then you're not effective in her life. That's real talk. If she talks more about her mother, her dad, and you're married, if she talks about more what her sister girl told her, and you're married to her, that means you don't have a strong enough vision that makes her believe you over anyone else's voice. Now, that does not mean that you cannot have people to give you the advice or the wisdom that you need to help move yourself forward to the next stage. But you have everything within you to give to her. So I'm giving both concepts to both the male and the female, but it does sound like I'm being more fixed on the man. I actually am, if you're picking that up. Men have to discover that they have the alpha position, not because they are better or not because they are stronger, not because they are the head and they can control everything. You are first because it is a foundation for the woman to stand on. It is very clear. And I'm saying this for those of you who are in the Philippines because the question has arrived. These things have arrived in the Philippines. There's never been a question that come up. And I'll get to that question in the Philippines about what has transitioned there because America is grappling with that. So I want to finish this up and I'm going to get into that question. So the male is the proclaimer. Proclaimer means he says what he wants to get done and he's looking for it to get done. He's going to say it. I want to have a house in 5 years. I want to have a business that's thriving in 10 years. I want my wife to have a beautiful relationship and we be happily married. Okay, cool. That's proclaiming. And she reminds him of what he proclaims. If he somehow gets off task, she's going to always remind you. She will always do it. So if she does it and you're like, why are you repeating that to me? That is because she is important to the task in the role of reminding you of that. Okay. Now we're going to get to something that I want to take a pause in the question. In the question. It's very important because this is quite the unique space that we live in right now at this very moment. The root of all human problems derive from a simple question. What is that question? I have to go back to the beginning of time. There's no other place. Matter of fact, there's a lot of other people that talk about the aspect of the garden. They call it the golden age. There are different names for it. But we know it as to be between a man and a woman. They're having dominion. They're in a perfect spot. There was someone that came in that asked the question, is it really true? Don't listen to the question I asked. Listen to how I asked the question. Is it possible? Do you really have it? The uniqueness of that question is not a question of asking you the question to get an answer. It's the question for you to question yourself about what the person is asking. That is the root to all human problems. I want you to let that sink in. I just gave you a secret. The root to all human questions, to all human problems, derives from a simple question. It is the question that usurps one's sovereignty, authority, or power. Can you really? Do you have the ability to? Is it really you? Were you born that way? Or is it the truth of it? It's cunning, but it's clever. Now, the reason why it's cunning and clever, as you can see, the Philippines, they're asking the question, is divorce an option on the table? There's the question. Is the marriage unit the most powerful and effective force in the world? Or is there another way? See, if I can recall based on my studies, please correct me if I'm wrong, there have been laws that have been passed that's given you more leeway in the Philippines to actually introduce literal legislation for the ability to get a divorce. That was never a question before, according to my study. That's what I mean by the cunning question. It's not the question to get you to answer the question. It's the question to get you to question your authority or the power you hold. Okay? So now that we've arrived at that stage, I want you to see how America is grappling with this very question of authority, power. After I told you all of the beautiful and wonderful things that the marriage gives you, I can show you what me and my wife do. But do you understand the dynamic and the strength of the unity of a male and female, the power? Or you allow the question to change the dynamics of a nation that's built on solid foundation. No, that's solid ground. That's not a religious concept. That is a solid foundation. That is an ancient stone that you do not move. Let me back it up. Because a lot of people will say, well, didn't people back in even the day with Moses, have a bill of certificate? I answer like the king answered. There was no such thing from him. That was given because Moses gave the right to do it. that was not God's doing. That was Moses' doing because of the hardness or the people who were questioning their own authority because they had their own agendas. Right? So we're going to go back, and that's the part that I want to really make sure that we're careful of. Agendas, different agendas will create a struggle with that. So be careful of the power dynamics and the struggle for significance. Men are fighting with women and women are fighting with men. We should never be fighting one another. We complete one another, not compete with one another. There is no competition in the distinctive abilities. There's nothing that a man can do. There's nothing, I can't do anything a woman can do, just like she can't do anything I can do. Yes, we have dominion, but she functions totally different from me. So remember, the man and the woman in the beginning were honest, transparent, and one-minded. And I repeat it again. You tear down a strong marriage, you tear down the tenets of a nation. Okay, so that is the question that's going on, and we're going to grapple with that because there's a lot of other questions that have come up with the ability of what is a man and what is a woman. Is there a concept of a man who wants to be a woman? I'm not going to dive into that on this one. But we're going to go into the law of gender, the original design by law, the original design by law. So I want you, now I'm going to do something here. I'm going to be making sure that we get the concept here on how this derives and how it's supposed to come together. I'm hitting close to my mark, and I may have to do another part 2 or part 3. And then we'll kind of do on the next scenery or the next stage of and having communication on the next day we do this. But I want to talk about the law of gender because I think it's very important that we make it very clear that both masculine and feminine energy are required in balance to create anything in life. I think that's the key. The sexual reproduction of the species is a great example of this law in the physical world. And in the way that is most obvious to us, the concept applies in the energies of the water's world. No creation. Think about it in the beginning when God created everything. Nothing in any idea was done without the balance of the male and the female. Nothing. That means to create a God even understood. In order to create anything in the world, I need a masculine and a feminine nature. That's why we are supposed to come into one. And you know what? I want to take a pause on this topic right here. We're going to dive next week into this topic on the law of gender. Because I think it is very specific. I give you a good groundwork and a good ground foundation on what the law of gender is. I mean, on the aspects of the true dynamics of a man and a woman. But on next week, I want to dive into what the law of gender is and start developing a foundation on why it's important that we have to grow together and we have to understand how to create synergy together and stop disrupting our society. Because when we disrupt our society, we're disrupting the next generation's vision of how to live. And I always want to say, my wife and I are great examples because 15 years encountering, happily married, she is my best friend. There's nothing I do or don't do without her. I don't care how you take that. I love everything I do with her. She's the apple of my eye. She is my love. She's my best friend. We've done everything together and we'll continue to do everything together. So until next time, always remember, what you cannot see, you cannot become. Always remember the master key to one's life is a vision. Without a vision, you're malfunctioning. Until next time we catch you, thank you for listening in. Catch you next week.